And welcome back to Radio ATN, everyone. My name is Danny Pankratz. I'm on the board of directors for the Attachment and Trauma Network, or ATN. I'm happy to be joined by Susan Driscoll from CPI, or Crisis Prevention Institute. CPI is our platinum sponsor of our 2023 Creating Trauma-Sensitive Schools conference. So, Susan, thank you for being here, and thank you especially for being a sponsor of the conference. For those watching who might not be familiar with CPI, what is CPI and what do you all do?
Sure. So CPI, Crisis Prevention Institute, has been doing training, a train the trainer model for over 42 years now. We're the leading provider of de-escalation training and where it's necessary restrictive intervention training. So we teach we talk about life's daily crisis moments. We teach people how to actually observe the stages of an escalating crisis and specifically what to do at each stage to de-escalate.
So I was looking at your website and it seems like train the trainers and then also people-centered are kind of like the two hallmarks of what you do.
Yes.
Coming in, helping out, but then empowering organizations to continue that through your model. But what about the people-centered side of it?
Sure. So let me just say a little bit. We have 39,000 trainers around the country. They have to be sponsored by an organization and they're only allowed to train in their organization.
Okay.
Because we believe in this concept of embedded coaches. Those people train about 1.2 million people every year in our principles. So we have quite a wide reach, but it's really important to us that people are, the training is person-centered and very trauma-informed. So we want to make sure that people don't just look at behavior, but look at the underneath the surface of what's driving that behavior, the underlying causes. And that's why we're so happy to be a sponsor at this conference.
Right. And you serve a lot more industries than just education, but since this is the Trauma Sensitive Schools Conference, let's talk a little bit more about that de-escalation training. And so can you unpack a little bit more about how it's trauma informed and for those who particularly looking in something along those lines?
Sure. Again, we want people to understand that that there's a person who's coming to a situation with a lot of life factors. And in fact, staff members are also coming with a lot of stressors and life factors. Some of the concepts that are important part of our training are the idea of the integrated experience, which is really co-regulation. My behavior and my sense of calm can impact you and can help to de-escalate. And conversely, if I'm stressed out, I can escalate you. So that concept, another important concept is the idea of precipitating factors, that we all come with a suitcase of life experiences, many of which are trauma-based. And we have to understand that there's a lot of precipitating factors that are behind the immediate behavior that we're witnessing.
Right. Do you have any stories you can tell about some of the results? It's incredible scale that you all have reaching so many organizations and then the people within. Any specific stories from working with schools?
Oh, well, we have so many stories. That really does reduce the need for restraint when people are properly trained and they're trained to de-escalate, to understand the early signs of a crisis, when somebody is in an anxiety state and how to respond, when somebody's being defensive, how to respond.
Right.
You can avoid that risk behavior altogether. So we have terrific outcomes. I mean, I think our longevity and the number of people who get trained are just probably the best evidence of that our training works.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. So this morning you had an opportunity to talk to the audience as you introduced our morning keynote with Dr. Lori. Do you want to share a little bit with those watching with us live or later on, kind of what your message was to the audience of this conference?
Absolutely. So CPI is known to many as a restraint training company. I've been with the company for 5 years and I'm on a mission to change that sort of brand identity because we're so much more than that. But I think it's a logical question. Why would a restraint training company be involved in an event like this? Why would we sponsor? And it's because we know probably better than anyone the trauma that comes from physical restraint. And we know that sometimes it's necessary as a last resort, but we truly believe it should be a last resort. And so we're very committed to supporting organizations like ATN, and just bringing more trauma-informed practices to the world and to the platform that we have.
So on what you were just saying, you also mentioned this morning your partnership with the Guy Stevens and the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint. And I know that his work came from a very personal and real story of understanding the trauma that can come from that. So
Absolutely.
Can you tell those of us watching a little bit about that partnership?
Sure. So I have known Guy and been communicating with him for over 2 years. I really believe in the work that he's doing. Again, we're very aligned. He was not so convinced that Crisis Prevention Institute was
I can imagine if a lot of people think of it restraint first.
Right. And actually his biggest question was, well, wait, if we eliminate restraint in the world, then you don't have a business. So why in the world would you want to eliminate restraint? And the answer is, it's an aspirational goal to get to, no restraint, but we're on that journey together. We're actually now working together to develop programs because we both agree that true prevention is upstream. That by the time you're at the first stage of a crisis, which is the anxiety level, it's almost too late.
Right.
So how can we actually recognize very early warning signs of a dysregulated state, and what can we do, and how can we empower teachers and staff members to respond early before it gets to the point of even the early stage of a crisis?
Yeah, and the trauma-informed approach really, I think is a good foundation for that, and some of the fundamentals too.
Right.
Understand, as you said, person-centered, and all of the factors that might lead to an escalation, and how do you de-escalate?
Right. And what's
that.
so interesting to me, I think you have 800 attendees here.
Yeah,
at least.
800 in person, and then I think hundreds more joining us later in the week.
Amazing. Yeah. But the sense of community and the shared experience, the co-regulation that comes from just the people at this conference is just really impressive. And I think everyone should come. I mean, I wish everyone could come to this.
That was going to be my next question for you. So this is year 6 of the event, but year 1 of you being here and sponsoring. So other than the co-regulation, the sense of community, anything else major takeaways from your time at the conference so far?
I think 2 thoughts. The speakers are terrific. It's been very rewarding to just be able to sit in on the presentations. And it's so interesting, the participants and the different phases of their journey. So many people, I've been talking to people, I talked to a principal today who this is year 2 of a collective journey that they're on to become trauma informed in their district. Other people have been on this journey for many
and you
years.
have many of the leaders in this area here as well. Yeah.
I think that there are 13 people from the Chicago Public Schools who are at the very beginning part of their journey, and I asked one of them, like, what are you trying to develop for the school district? And she said, I'm not sure, but we're here to learn, and we hope to work together to create something. So
I lived in Chicago for over a decade till very recently. I'm very happy to hear that. And I think, your CPI's sponsorship is a good fit, because one of the takeaways I always is just the scale, right? So with your organization and all of those embedded trainers reaching so many people, and then we have 800 educators, teachers, administrators, social workers, counselors, things like that. And then think of all of the colleagues that they're going to go to, like 13 from Chicago Public Schools.
Absolutely.
But how is this message getting out? And then who are they working with if they bring, CPI in for some training? And then, the number of children reached year over year, not to mention in the future. It's just, you can really see a path to, the outcomes we're all working towards.
When I joined CPI and first learned about the training that we deliver, and this is a common theme, that when people go through our training, they say, oh my God, everybody in the world needs this training. And that's how I feel about the work that the speakers here and the work of ATN. Everybody needs this training, because when you understand the neuroscience of trauma and really understand, the connections between the brain, the nervous system, and trauma, you never look at the world or a person the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an 18-month-year-old. I don't work in education at all, but my connection to ATN and what I learn at these events and through working with ATN, or reading or listening to some of the books. Dr. Perry's recent book, What Happened to You with Oprah, I was listening to as I would walk or run in the months leading up to when our daughter was born, and it's very fundamental in just how I parent, but also I think person to person, right?
Absolutely.
And, understanding how we all operate and the things kind of influencing our life on the day to day.
Right. And as a new parent,
Yeah.
I have a daughter who recently had a baby. She's 6 weeks old, and she's struggling and nervous about things. And I say to her, because of this work, the most important thing is if you're regulated, if you are in a safe space and feeling calm, your baby's going to be calm, and that's the most important thing. Like, you can't make mistakes other than surround that child with safety.
And with so much being asked of teachers, that same thing applies, right? And so helping them understand that and setting them up for success with specific training is.
I actually have to say something about that, because there's so much emphasis on the learning loss and on children and their mental health. Nobody's focused on teacher mental health.
Yeah.
And
there are statistics showing, the
as
turnover and burnout and
if the teachers aren't feeling regulated, then there's no hope for the kids.
Right.
So I think that there needs to be a much greater awareness and sensitivity to what teachers are struggling with.
Absolutely.
And how we can help them.
Yeah, that's been a refreshing, I think that perspective is really, in the couple of years I've seen coming up as well, obviously systematic change and how you take techniques back into your classroom and focus on the children that they're serving.
Yes.
But that seems to really have kind of resonated over the last couple of years, particularly as we've all been challenged by a unique last couple of years with the pandemic. But it's nice that it's in that, because you got to start there. We've heard that message, I think, in most of our keynotes, I'm sure other sessions throughout.
Yes.
Well, we could keep talking about this. That's why we have a conference where we have multiple days to talk about these type of things. So if you're watching live and this is the conversation that resonated with you, you can still join us for our virtual conference Thursday and Friday. So I encourage you to register for that. There's been more information about the conference, ATN and CPI on your screen. If you are here in Houston, come stop by the exhibit hall. We still have all day tomorrow. We have tonight at bingo as well. And talk to Susan and the team at CPI and learn more. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Radio ATN.
Thank you.